Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Feel Like Tarot. Welcome to my channel. So if you ever felt like the year should actually start again in February, this is the video for you. So like many of us, I've had the most confusing, gut-wrenching, worrying, waking up at 3 a.m. like constantly start of the year. I have spoken about it to several people and they all say the same, but then again I feel like we have so many expectations at the end of a year for the new year to come that January is always treated a bit unfairly, in the sense that we always expect so much out of a poor month that is just trying to recover from what, you know, all of the overeating and over drinking and over TV binging and you know, all of the holiday shenanigans of the year before. So it's always a month in which we're slowly going back to reality and we just realize that nothing really has changed, even though in our mind, for whatever reason, we thought new year, new life, but it doesn't always work that way. And so it's a bit unfair that we look at January with disdain, because it's like, you were supposed to be the month, you know, the year that is going to change my life, and you were not. So being unfair, setting that aside and looking at this year, it is the year of the Strength card, so let's just brace ourselves. It's going to be like that for many of us. And also depending on what your personal card of the year is, obviously you need to read those two in combination, but I can assure you that no matter what your card of the year is, the Strength card means that there's always going to be doubts and confirmation of those doubts. Yes, of course, there's going to be a victory. It's going to be, you know, overcoming the doubts at the end. But those doubts need to be there in the first place. So if you ever felt like you want to start again, you want to, you know, go at the countdown at midnight on the January the 31st, you're not alone out there. There's a lot of us that think exactly that. And so what I thought is, okay, if we indeed had a possibility to start the year again, I would definitely look at my decks in a different way, because I started the year as if it weren't, as if it wasn't even a new year. I started with my tarot practice the same way I would do with every month, but I forgot that, you know, we are slightly changing. So obviously there's a few new planetary positions. So we're having Saturn in Pisces, we're having Pluto in Aquarius. There's a lot of shaking up of things. And so I'm starting again, and I proclaim the 1st of February will be like the 1st of January. So it's the start of 2024. And this video is about the decks that I am really excited about for 2024. Okay, so there's about two categories. One is decks that I've acquired, you know, before 2024, practically all of them, because I haven't acquired as many decks in January as I did in the previous month. But what I mean with that is they may not necessarily be new decks in my collection, or they may not be new decks at all, but they have been overlooked, they've been neglected for whatever reason. I didn't have time to get to them, and you know, life got in the way. And so these are, let's say, between brackets, older kind of decks that I'm actually rekindling my flame for. And we start with the Tarot of the Uncharted Garden. I feel like I haven't paid this deck justice. I feel like I should have, I don't know, I got it when I was on holiday, and I didn't necessarily have the time when I was on holiday. I didn't have the time to actually do a deep dive or actually looking you know, more than the first impressions. And I feel like because it reminds me so much of Olivia Rose's style for, you know, the curly stuff, the decorations, like curly stuff like that. I don't even know how to call that. So I had a look at it, and then I was like, it's a bit meh. Like, it's not an exceptional deck. It's not a bad deck. Like, it's actually really pretty. It's beautiful. I like it. But because of all of these curls, I think that the curls, the style in Olivia Rose's deck, by the way, sorry, Olivia Rose is the author of, for example, the Mermaid's Purse Oracle or the Mind's Eye Tarot, the Heart's Eye Oracle, etc. And I follow her account on Instagram, and she's an absolutely fantastic artist. However, she seems to have more purpose, and she actually differentiates a lot with different colors. And that makes it so that to the naked eye, the images do not look monotonous. And this deck doesn't do that. These images, to be honest with you, even though they are quite beautiful, the art style is beautiful, but they look, how should I say this without being offensive? So I don't mean anything offensive with that. I just mean that they're not remarkable. They are not remarkable. I hope that it's not offensive, because I really don't mean it that way. They are more homogeneous. It looks like they are all almost background figures. That's the definition I was looking for. It looks like these characters are actually background figures, and it's almost as if we were watching a theater play and we see all of the characters, supporting characters, you know, in the background, and we're still waiting for the protagonist to come to the stage. And I know that if you think about it, that's actually a really bad thing to say about a deck, because it's almost as if I were saying that it's not effective. But then again, that's one of the reasons why I set it aside. Beautiful, pretty, really nice, love the color palette, and yet the images look slightly confusing, or, you know, not remarkable, unremarkable because of that. Had there been more contrast between the colors, like for example, there are a few cards that do have that kind of contrast, and I really like that. This one doesn't, so we got the moon card, really beautiful, absolutely, but you can only see the moon, and agreed, that is the main character in the moon card, but you kind of get lost in all of this in the lower part of the card. But when you go to, for example, the Nine of Pentacles, there is a certain contrast with the colors, and that makes it so that I kind of pay more attention to the card. This one not so much, this one a bit more, this one not really. And this one, which is supposed to be the full, right? Okay, the first glimpse that I had of this card, I just focus on the, is that some kind of a hat or it's a headpiece, let's put it this way. Really beautiful, very beautiful figure, very beautiful art style, love it, love it, love it, but I stop here. And so when I do a reading, and let me just give you an example, because I feel like I may be misunderstood when I don't mean to. There you go. When you look at this, everything loses its original shape, and it almost feels like it's not even, you know, you need to go, oh, okay, that's the Fool, oh, okay, that's the Knight of Cups, oh, okay, that's, well, this one, of course, you recognize that because of the swords in the back. But it's the colors are so very gradually similar that it kind of loses the potency, the power of what the cards are supposed to be. Because, for example, you lose the details. Like, it's so cute that there's this cat here. I love this cat, and it looks like my cat. And so, of course, I would have loved this card had there been more contrast. You know, had the colors perhaps been more brilliant. Or not necessarily, but had there been enough contrast, like in this case, the headpiece looks like it's got a really nice combination of colors and contrast. So your eye automatically goes here, but it doesn't go in anywhere else in the real estate of the card. And I could say the same for many other cards. And that's why I believe that it loses the grip on people. However, I really like the concept of the deck, and I also like the guidebook, which is, by the way, I forgot to say, this is a Los Scarabeo deck. And but it's one of those luxurious products. And when it comes to the description, in some cases, you know, there's a bit of description of the card in general, but in other cases it's actually kind of nice because it reminds you of the card. So let's read the Eight of Swords, for example. Where is it? It's here. So we've got it here. We got the Eight of Swords, and what to say? A lady stands bound and blindfolded before an array of swords. Perhaps she's being punished or shamed for some misdeed. Perhaps this is justified, or it may be jealousy or resentment acting against her. Whatever the cause, it appears that she has accepted her fate. Her feet are not tied. Can you actually see that? I cannot. You see what I mean? Okay, fine. Okay, I assume that her feet are not tied. And she could easily slip from the loose bonds that confine her. Something keeps her there, something that causes her to believe in her own helplessness. Someone who believes they deserve disgrace will always manage to achieve it. If you see yourself as a victim, you are. See, there's always a bit of a twist at the end. I love when he starts saying someone, well, something keeps her there, something that causes her to believe in her own helplessness. So that's an aspect, for example, of the Eight of Swords that we don't necessarily point to. There is always that sense of anxiety because it is the suit of the mind. And there's always that sense of a cage of your own making. But in this case, it's not a cage of her own making. It does not seem to suggest that, which is a kind of a different layer to the Eight of Swords. She is in a cage, she's been put there. And it even says in some cases it can also be justified. You know, but in any case it says, but it's up to you to believe that you can escape or not. And it ties it back to the concept of the cage of your own making. However, it does give it a slightly different perspective, because whether you're there because you put yourself there or someone else that did that for you, you can still escape just as long as you believe that you can. So I love that, and I'm gonna show you, having gone through this guidebook a few times, and what I like to do is I also check on the Italian version, because sometimes, and I saw that in the I think the Symbolic Soul Tarot has a slightly different there's a couple of oracle decks. The Journey of the Lonely Soul, for example, has a slightly longer description in the Italian section of the guidebook, and it does tend to give you a little bit more information on the cards. This one is exactly the same. I actually have checked. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Eight of Spade, Eight of Swords is actually a lot less, but it does recreate that same sense of you know, if you believe that you deserve that that situation, you will never, you will always be in that situation. So it does have a little bit more of a description on the English side, but I always do that kind of confrontation because I don't want to miss out on something. And in any case, I can assure you that all of these cards actually have that kind of a twist in the interpretation. So this is a deck that I'm actually looking forward to for 2024. I look forward to work with this deck because of the guidebook. And it's one of the many reasons why someone will want to go back to a deck they feel they have neglected, because sometimes there may be a really interesting guidebook, sometimes it may be the artwork that really calls you, sometimes it may be, and please understand, I do believe in cardstock, and the quality and the tactile feel for me is very, very important. Even the auditory feel is fantastic. These two, when you do like that, it's a really nice kind of a sound. So, you know, cardstock and tactile feel and auditory feel can actually be a reason why you want to revisit a deck. This one, when it comes to the art style itself, I like it, but the color palette that has been chosen in specific with this card, art style, I think it actually does some kind of it doesn't do it justice, because it makes you almost overlook the cards and the small details in the cards. So this is one of the decks I'm actually looking forward to use in 2024. So another deck that belongs to the same category is the Hyde Tarot by Dan Francis. I do have the guidebook. I bought this from Boutique London, and they also sent me the PDF guidebook. So I'm actually looking forward to dive back into this deck because of the guidebook. I have to admit I haven't printed it out yet, simply because I haven't had the time. And I have to say, this deck definitely needs the guidebook. Not because you couldn't read without it, because obviously if you know your RWS, you're gonna adopt that divination system, and that's fine. You're gonna be absolutely fine. However, this deck has so many different layers, and it's so interesting. The association with the card itself, the image, and the title is so interesting, and it's so well explained in the guidebook that I do believe that I really need to get back into it. Because, okay, let's have a look. For example, the snail, the hermit. Okay, you see a snail, the image corresponds, not always, but the image corresponds to the title in this case. Why is it the hermit associated with the snail? Well, you could argue that the snail can, you know, when they're in a dangerous situation, they probably, you know, retire back into their house, their shell. I don't even know whether... Is it called a shell for a snail? I don't even know, but in any case, they obviously find refuge within the, let's call it shell for now. Okay, so perhaps the hermit could be seen with this kind of interpretation. Is the person that retires to a safe place because they feel that they're in a dangerous situation and they need to, you know, take refuge, which is absolutely fine. However, you will see that there's a lot more in the explanation of the book, and it actually talks about, you know, some kind of a let's start again. You know, making a slate, wiping it clean and start again. And that's a really interesting way to see the hermit, because the hermit can be seen in the cycle of life. So let's not forget that the hero's journey or the fool's journey throughout the major arcanas, it's a cycle. It's not a linear kind of journey. It's linear if you only observe it in one go, let's say, but whenever the world card manifests itself, the fool has to start the journey again. There's no two ways around that. Life is about movement. Life is a cycle, it's not a line. And that is one of my strongest beliefs, and that's why we need to learn from history. So in this case, we could see the hermit as a hermit that has baggage. You know what I mean? Like, they have been in that situation before and they take refuge because they're actually feeling like they are in a dangerous situation. Whereas the hermit you can see in a line as opposed to a cycle will go there to just know more about themselves. And you can combine the two. So the clover, for example, for the Wheel of Fortune, or the swan for the King of Swords, that's a really interesting one, because to me the King of Swords is the expert, the scientist, but also in the evolution of the court cards for the element of air, is the person that has mastered so well their thoughts that they give back to the community. Kings are always called upon giving back to the community because they reached... It's like saying when you reach the top floor of a building, send the elevator back down because there's people who are waiting. So it's interesting to have that kind of association with the swan. The moth with the Page of Wands relates to the spark and the electricity and the energy of the Page of Wands, but it's also because the moth is that creature who can be absolutely fantastic, really beautiful. There are some moths that are really beautiful, like probably even more beautiful than a butterfly. I've been to Costa Rica and oh my goodness, moths can be as big as my hand, and butterfly can too, but there's something to moths that is actually, you know, it's evoking the nighttime in that kind of darkness, but at the same time the mystery. So they're really, really beautiful. And it reminds us of the initial stage of the page. So pages are at the beginning of their evolution in the court cards. And so, you know, it can remind you of something that is beautiful, but is not necessarily seen yet. So there is so much that can be said, and the prayer for the Ace of Pentacles and the charm for the Tower. Oh my goodness, why would you call the Tower the charm? You know, so it's something that, and by the way, I don't know, so I have to go back to the guidebook. The Lovers, that it fits you like a glove. So there's so much that you can actually learn more about, not just this tarot deck in specific, but tarot decks in general, by understanding, by reading the guidebook of this deck, the High Tarot, and really giving your knowledge of the system an edge that somebody else might not have. And so I am really excited about, you know, going down the rabbit hole when it comes to this deck, the High deck in specific, because of the guidebook, and because I'm sure that would have, you know, so that there will be cards that I don't agree with, fair enough. I don't always have to agree with everything. The Mouse with the Seven of Pentacles, I don't really see that, but it can still find the spark in the eye, for example, perhaps is reflected in the activation of, you know, your perception, or the whiskers of the mouse, for example. They use them pretty much like cat use their whiskers, so they perceive distances, they perceive location of objects. That's why they're always moving their snout. And so that's the Seven of Pentacles, because you're assessing where to go. So there's the painting for the Nine of Swords. Why would that be the painting? I'm so excited about this deck, and you know, really studying for the Witch for the Four of Pentacles. I wouldn't see the Witch for the Four of Pentacles, but there's always something that reminds you of that sense of consolidation of your own skills and resources, and riches as well. So absolutely excited about this deck for 2024. And last but not least in this category is the Walking Meditation Tarot by Danielle Norman. I know that Danielle has, I think, relaunched the Kickstarter, and now she's started, or she's already completed, you know, the shipping of the new decks for these decks. And I saw a lot of people talking about this deck lately on Instagram and everything. The reason why I'm really excited about this deck for this year is because, and I talked about this deck already in my channel, because you can actually pair up a reading tarot with an additional layer of walking, and walking for meditation. So obviously you would have this one here. So basically this is proposing a few rituals associated to walking. And when when I don't have acute Achilles tendonitis, I actually tend to walk a lot. Like walking is my favorite, let's say, exercise. And I do tend to walk a lot when I go on vacation, for example. My husband and I tend to walk everywhere rather than, you know, when the walk is interesting, obviously, but we tend to walk rather than take taxis or anything. I remember once in New York, I walked something like almost 45,000 steps. I used to have those, what are they called? Well, like a Fitbit, you know, like they count, step counters. And I was shocked, because 45,000 steps in one day for me is actually personal best. And I wasn't tired at all. Well, probably I was tired, but I couldn't feel it, because New York is such a wonderful city to walk around, and it hurts so much to see that everyone wants to take the metro. And of course you take the metro because that's fascinating as well. But you know, one day just try and walk. And I remember I actually walked through the whole Manhattan Island, and from Brooklyn. So I actually, that's how I did 45,000 steps. But in any case, walking is my addiction when it comes to, you know, sometimes we get addicted to a certain type of exercise, and I believe I am, to the point that I really damaged my Achilles tendon. It doesn't seem to go away. If you watch my channel, you will know that I started talking about my tendonitis 3 months ago. It's still there, actually getting worse. Yay! I'm so happy about that. Anyway, so yeah, really excited about looking at this deck again. you know, for 2024, because as soon as I get rid of that inflammation, I would definitely start walking again. It's a really beautiful deck that starts from photographs. So these are actually photos that have been then, you know, worked on. And but they do retain that kind of photographic style, in the sense that the colors are very real. They correspond to, you know, real life, not necessarily. I'm looking at this one, for example. This could definitely be a sun setting over water. I believe this is water. And then obviously Danielle has added, you know, the elements, because we're talking about the Ten of Swords in this case. So obviously she had to add the swords. Sorry, I don't actually know Danielle's pronouns, so it could be they. I apologize for that, I actually don't know. And I really, really love what they've done with this deck. I'm looking forward to it, because it's a deck that I like walking, and so tarot deck associated with walking, you wouldn't normally conceive that, would you? Because, you know, in order to read the tarot, you need to sit down. You need not just to sit down, but you also need a place to, you know, put the cards. Obviously it can be really small in a pinch, of course, but walking with tarot, the risk is that you drop the cards and you lose them. So I wouldn't want to do that. But this is actually working out, because it really tells you how to do the meditation, and you can do the pull before or after your walk. I love this Justice card, by the way. And I really love the association with nature. It's a really beautiful nature. It's the kind type of nature, but then again, it's the type of nature that feels more real. And so you really want to, it makes you want to go for a walk, because it makes you want to explore more and know more about everything that surrounds us. So I'm very excited about this deck for this year. And now let's talk about, it's a slightly different category, although I have to say this is a hybrid. Okay, the next deck is a bit of a hybrid between the two categories. So it is the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine. This is a hybrid because it's not a new deck by any means. I think it's from 2020, 2021 perhaps. Let's see if it says anything here. No, it doesn't. But in any case, it's not from 2023. It did enter my collection in 2023. What happened was that I had it, but then I took it with me when I was visiting someone, and I left it there. And then obviously I didn't forget. I knew that it was there, but I didn't have any opportunity to go back and pick it up. And so at the end of the day, I just got it back like 3 days ago. So it feels almost as if it were just entering my collection. And to be honest, I only had a quick look at the cards. I know about this deck because it's not, let's say, you do tend to see it in the tarot community, and it's a really powerful deck. That's what I feel like saying. You know, the adjective that you would use immediately when you see the cards is that it's a very powerful deck, and this power is obtained through very contrasting, very strong colors. They definitely trigger a lot of emotions. There's a lot of association with very strong keywords as well. I think that this one is softer than the other deck by the same authors, and I think the other one was called the Wisdom of the Shadow. So obviously, being a deck that it would suggest to be read for shadow work, obviously it has an even more confrontational kind of association between the images and the keywords. This one is slightly softer, but it is still very powerful, and I really look forward to work with it because I actually missed it. So I don't know if this ever happened to you, but for whatever reason, if you misplaced the deck, or if you, sometimes you may have just lent the deck to someone and they're keeping it and you just start missing it, and you know, when you find yourself looking for it because you want to use it, it means that the deck is also kind of missing you, and so it's a reason to just try and work with it. And I really look forward to work with this deck this year. This card is really beautiful, so it's fierceness. I think that the Wisdom of the Shadow has many more cards that are similar to this one. So there's a lot of, let's say, powerful outbreaks of the person. So in this case, you can see the person is literally just shouting It looks almost as if she were or they were spitting fires out of their mouth. And so that definitely suggests taking back the power that we may have lost. But then again, you also have this really kind, still powerful cards with humility here. This one looks to me like the, what's it called? The Tarot of the Crown. It's one of the cards of the Tarot of the Crown, very similar to that. But in any case, it's a fantastic deck, really excellent cardstock. Very beautiful color palette, and it's one of those decks that when you use the guidebook, by the way, it looks thin, but it's actually 44 cards, so it's okay. And it's a very beautiful guidebook as well. So it gives you obviously the thumbprint of the image, it gives you the title, also it gives you the name of the art. You can see that for every card. And then it gives you a bit of a sentence that you can use for contemplation. It does give you prompts for your journal, called them contemplations as well. And then it gives you a lot of keywords, sorry about that. And then it talks about the cards itself, but in a way in which we would understand the keywords associated with the card. It tells you what you can use out of this card in order to enrich your personal practice, and it gives you a ritual that you may or may not, you know, associate with the card. So there's a lot that can be done here, and one of these, it's one of those decks that don't necessarily call for a tarot deck to be paired up with it. Even though I would definitely try and pair it up, perhaps. Let me see. It's got very powerful colors, but I'm thinking off the top of my mind, perhaps the Gentle Tarot, just to give it a little bit of balance. And perhaps also the Tarot of the Crown, because it does have a few cards, more than a few cards do have that kind of atmosphere or vibe. Even this one, for example, that's really beautiful. In any case, it's one of those decks that I'm really looking forward to work with, because I actually missed it when I misplaced it, let's put it this way. I actually missed it. And, you know, I tend to listen to this kind of, when I want to decode a message out of a sign, for example. I don't always do that, because I tend to believe that humans ask for a sign so frequently that we're kind of misunderstanding them. We're kind of seeing signs where there's none. But this is, I tend to see this as a kind of a sign. Whenever I miss a deck, I look for it, and then I remind myself, oh, I don't have it, it's at someone else's place, and then, you know, I kind of feel the lack. I feel that like there's a missing space in my practice. So I'm definitely looking forward to use this deck. And I've got the last two, so let's see what these are. So the first one is a deck that I only just received last week, I believe, or 10 days ago. It's a really new deck. The concept is new, everything is new. This is a Kickstarter from a few months ago, but they literally just posted an update saying that they sent out the last of these decks, so people will, you know, still be in the process of receiving them depending on your location. It's called the Liberation Tarot, and it is a cooperation. So it is a cooperation between many artists, which is generally speaking something that would actually push me away. However, when I saw, and there's a funny story, I think I actually confessed that I wasn't sure what the cards would look like, because when I first looked at the Kickstarter, I didn't have my glasses with me, and I was looking through my iPhone, which is rather small compared to my desktop. There were a few cards that you know, were highlighted, let's say, in the campaign of the Kickstarter, and I definitely liked them. And I kind of, you know, decided sight unseen to just buy it because of intuition. I have to say that it took me a while to get into it, because the work, so it's a collaborative work and it's not very cohesive. And on top of everything, there's a lot of renaming of the major arcanas, which I'm totally fine with, but that requires a bit of an additional step in order to be able to connect with the deck. And it did need some time. I needed to set aside some time in order to be able to go through the cards, recognize them, etc. So one thing that I always do to connect with a new deck is I usually shuffle the cards. I do an intro, like an interview with the deck, asking the deck to please introduce itself, to tell me what's the weaknesses and the strength of the deck, and also I ask the deck to tell me what the deck thinks about me and how we can best work together. Also my strengths and weaknesses sometimes, not always. But what happened was that after that initial interview, I wanted to put the deck back in order. In fact, as you can see, it is back in order now, because it's having renamed also the minors means that it's actually easier to, and the chord cards, by the way, it's easier to have it in order and, you know, just familiarize myself with the cards. That has pros and cons, because when it's shuffled, you will not notice how diverse or different and uncohesive the artwork is, because it's, you know, it's shuffled, so obviously it's supposed to have differences between the cards. But when it's like that, you know, on the other hand, it's easier. It's definitely easier to just learn about the cards. I'm definitely excited about this deck. I have to say that I've only seen it in a couple of accounts, perhaps on Instagram, because, well, not a lot of people have this deck, but it's also because I think that that's exactly what happened to me. It happened to others as well. So they needed to connect with this deck before starting to use it, but also to say anything about it. And I believe that the process of knowing this deck really needs to be done with the guidebook, because it's otherwise you lose that sense of you know, continuity and sequence that the cards actually do have, but you only see that through the guidebook. So I have had a first look and I'm very excited about it. There's a couple of things that I'm still not 100% with, but that's because I haven't had time to actually properly bond with the deck yet. And so it's one of the decks that I'm actually really excited about for 2024, because I really want to trust that this deck will come through for me. I really want to trust that I will come through for this deck as well. So it's not just a deck. And I also want to believe what the campaign was all about. So they were talking about a new way to achieve collaboration in decks. They were comparing it to the Collective Tarot, which is a really big call, I have to say. The Collective Tarot is one of the big three, the triad of the most expensive decks, obviously. And so I was really curious about that, and I have to admit that that really sold me to, you know, to the concept of the deck, and I want to see whether that's true or not. To me, after a first look, I have to say it doesn't look like a new Collective Tarot. I don't have that kind of feel. If anything, it feels like it's an in-between between the Collective and the Spolia. I tend to see a few cards more like, you know, similar to the Spolia rather than the Collective Tarot. But then again, you know, I could be completely wrong, because I really still need to feel the energy of this deck. But I'm looking forward to it, because whenever there's a new deck that doesn't immediately click, you know, there may be two outcomes. Either it does click because I really find its purpose and its intention behind the cards, and that's wonderful when that happens. Or if it doesn't click, you know, I may rehome it and I may send it to someone that actually is going to work with it because it resonates more with them than it does with me. But either way, I like the opportunity that this deck is giving me, because I'm a very humble tarot reader, and I think that I don't always know everything, and anytime that a deck is actually giving me an additional layer of reading, of knowledge, I'm always grateful for it. So this is the Liberation Tarot. I'm very excited about this deck for 2024. And now there's the last deck that I'm very excited for this year, and I've only just received it. It's very recent, and I don't know, I've never seen it. I have never seen it around. So this is called a Dose of Reality Oracle deck, and it's an indie deck by Kiarna Ella, and the artist is Todd William Deering. And so the concept of this deck, that it's a 33 cards deck, unfortunately, so I was kind of hesitating about that, but I saw the images and really liked it. And so it was I bought it secondhand in one of the Facebook group, and it was very affordable, and so I thought, you know, I might just give it a chance. So the 33 cards give you the ultimate dose of reality. Each image is a photo in nature, which has been enhanced to help you connect to the frequency of the land and activate your own knowing. They may seem harsh initially, but by being triggered, we hold an opportunity to clear, and being lighter is loving. These cards create the awareness to know exactly what to release, connecting to, and what will expand when you do. They have been designed for the busy person who are ready to implement and take action by getting answers quickly that invoke results. So absolutely, it's I do agree with the description. I have to be honest, I didn't read the description before I got the deck, but when I looked at it and I read it, I felt like they were spot on. It is true that there's a lot of triggering done, so just, you know, trigger alert or warning. There's a few cards that are quite, how should I say? If this was a TV show, there will be some beeping. Let's put it this way. So they are probably triggering. One of the cards that really had a very strong effect on me is the Shadow card, this one here. Because, okay, I have to say, this card reminds me so much of a TV show that was called The Gloaming. And it was, if you're Australian, it's on Stan. It was set in Tasmania a couple of years, maybe 3 years ago, 4, I don't remember. Maybe it was pre-pandemic. Anyway, yes, I think it was pre-pandemic. But in any case, it's such a dark show. The concepts of the show are so dark. And it was, you know, I don't want to give out any spoilers, but the characters used to meet together in the middle of a forest, and many of the branches looked like horns, and that's exactly the feeling that this card is giving me. And immediately my mind jumped to the TV show, and that was really dark, and so that it's definitely triggering. That's something that you will see and feel immediately. And pump and boring, yeah, dumb and boring, sorry. So it doesn't hold any punches. See what I mean? Beep. So it doesn't hold any punches. It's a very strong kind of deck. Doomsday. But I have to drama. But I have to say, sometimes I believe that last year I would have needed a deck like this in a few instances, and so I believe that this year, even though I haven't had any instance yet in which I felt like I needed a punch in the face, basically, I believe that there might be occurrences, you know, this year in which I would actually recur to this deck and I will accept what the message is. I have to say, I did try a reading with only one card and it was already a punch in the face. So to be honest with you, it is only for a very specific kind of work. But I'm very excited about it because, again, this is giving me something that I think only one other deck in my vast collection gives me. So whenever I can, you know, vary a little bit, whenever I need a certain type of deck that gives you that opportunity, if I have more than one, I'm, you know, the more the merrier. So it's obviously really welcome in my collection. So this is definitely a deck I'm very excited about to work with in 2024. Now, I would be very curious to know what decks you're excited about for 2024. I have to say that in addition to these, there's a couple of decks I'm very excited about, but they haven't been released or they haven't been printed out yet. So one is the reprint of the Leonora Carrington's Tarot, which is from Folger Press. I think now the pre-orders have been closed, but I'm not entirely sure. Another one is also the pre-order, I think they have closed, is the Tarot of Echoes by Anatorian. You guys know, if you follow my channel, you know how much I love Anna's work, so obviously I'm super excited about that one. And then there's a few decks that are being released finally in Australia after they've been released for months in the rest of the world. So we're very excited to finally get our hands on the Witch Sister Tarot. And there's another one that now, of course, I forgot the name, because you know, when I see, for example, there's a lot of people that have these decks in the US especially. It could be US Games decks, most of the times it is. But also Rockpool has started releasing decks in the US first and then in Australia. So for example, the Season of the Witches Oracles are going to be released first in the US and then in Australia. It is what it is. I'm not saying anything about it. It is what it is. I'm obviously not happy about it. There's a lot of people in Australia that really are not happy about it, but there's nothing we can do about it, so that's fine. And so there's a few decks, and generally speaking, when I see that there's everyone has got it in October, November in the US, and I look at the release date in Australia and it says March or April next year, you see, I don't even look at them anymore, because I do have a parcel collect service in Portland, Oregon, so I could get it from Amazon US, but it's gonna cost me so much because I have to pay the shipping cost twice, and it's not cheap. So I'm just waiting, that's it. And it's not just us in Australia. I know that there's a few countries, like I was talking to one of my viewers is from Argentina, and she was saying exactly the same. In Argentina is even worse than Australia, so I'm not complaining. It is what it is. Now, as I said, very curious to know what yours, how are you excited about the decks that are coming out this year, or perhaps are there decks you got from 2023 but you haven't had, for whatever reason, the opportunity to get into, and you're excited about them for this year? Let me know in the comments below, or if you want to pick this up as a hashtag, I'll be very happy to watch it. But for now, have a great day.